Even creating a private practice with the name Indigenous Circle of Wellness, or even for myself, I was like, this is a bit of a risk.
Oftentimes, people will just be so heart-centered that the business suffers.
No matter what, it was like, you're going to do a good job. And like, you always leave a place better than how you found it.
Welcome to CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Mabra. This is your one-stop shop to learn the business side of your practice on a deeper level. On this show, we empower you to own your CEO status to scale your practice for growth, sustainability, and profit. Listen in as we talk about how to market your practice to gain more visibility, hire, build, and engage your ride or die dream team, create streamlined operations, and make financial decisions as a CEO. It's time to show up as a confident leader to create a practice and life you love. Let's get started. Hello, Monique. Welcome to CEO Conversations. I'm so excited to have you here and just to be able to share all the amazing wisdom that you have when it comes to private practice, when it comes to being purpose-driven. You're doing some amazing things inside of your practice. And so I wanted to definitely share some of just your thought process, some of the things that you've been able to implement inside your practice with your providers and your team. Do you want to go ahead and maybe introduce yourself, and so that way people can hear it straight from you?
So thank you for having me. So greetings, everyone. My name is Monique Castro. I'm a citizen of the Navajo Nation and Chicana, born and raised on Tongva lands, which is Los Angeles, or what folks know as Los Angeles. My family is from the Navajo Nation. I have a lot of family also in Texas, with our roots also in Mexico. So just really like the Southwest region is very much home to me. So Los Angeles is kind of my main place, my home now. I'm a mom of a very vibrant 2-year-old, very energetic, lovely 2-year-old. I'm a wife. I'm the eldest sister of 4. And I own 2 businesses, which is Indigenous Circle of Wellness and Monique Castro Coaching and Consulting. And I've been working in my community, like in professionally, for the past nearly 17 years. And I say professionally because that's when I like really stepped into like different leadership roles and working in this way. But of course, I've been a part of my community my entire life. So this is where my heart is at. This is where my heart work is at. And what I am going to continue to do moving forward.
No,
So
thank you.
thanks for
Thank
having me.
you. I love the fact that you are so grounded in your heritage. And I love the fact of even right down to the name of your practice. It's very clear, what your mission is and what your vision is too. And even before we hit record, one of the things that we were talking about is purposeful work. And a lot of times, especially in the healthcare space, and even going deeper in the mental health space, there's this, what I call war between purposeful work and being heart-centered and how to get paid for your services, and then making sure that the practice is able to show up sustainably and still keep the lights on. And part of the reason why I wanted to have you here today is because you've been able to do this amazingly. And so what is your stance when you're thinking about purposeful work and just the mission when it comes to the work that you're doing every single day with the Indigenous community?
At all times, it's centering my community and what the needs are. But part of that community is myself, it's my family, it is the employees that I have in the practice who are incredible, women of color, Indigenous women, identified folks. And so when I think about the purposeful work, I think about, yes, the larger community and how are we providing this quality, very much needed care. Um, as well as ensuring the sustainability of the folks who are doing the work to support this healing. Because the amount of healing that we're doing and is really monumental, right? And in order to do it, we have to be well. The providers have to be well and sustained. We have to be able to provide for our families. We need to be able to show up day in and day out and not be burned out. And in this industry, in the healthcare industry, especially as a therapist, that is really high. Burnout is very high. But in order for us to really, almost the right word would be to shield ourselves, but to kind of make sure that we are well prepared to do this work for the long haul, right? Not just in a few years get burned out and move on, but like for the long haul, is that we need to do it well. And so in working throughout my career in like social services and mental health and social work, and then becoming a therapist, I just seen how much folks were kind of feeling really depleted. Also hearing things like, well, if you do that kind of work, you're not going to get paid well. Are you ready to like be broke? Those types of things. I'm like, oh, absolutely
Pennies on the
not.
dollar, you know.
I I'm like, absolutely not. I'm like, there has to be better ways to do this work, to do purposeful, values-driven heart work in a way that we are also ensuring that we're able to take care of ourselves, right? And that I can have the same like goals and future like aspirations as someone else who might not be in this kind of field, right? And other entrepreneurs. I think more than anything, we should be able to be sustainable. Like this is such important work, and we're changing lives and supporting people on lifelong healing. So, yeah, that I would say is kind of like the stance: a sustainable wellness, really for all of us, especially the providers who are
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
this
Thank you for
important
saying
work.
that because I think the tone is, and what you were saying, like, oh, you have to be broke. You can't ask for appropriate fees in order to keep your business going. You should be a nonprofit. Like the work that happens every
Mhm.
single day, especially in healthcare, is taxing work. It can definitely lead to burnout. The folks who are on the lines and the team that you have, and especially the owner, you know my stance, like especially the owner, so much weight and it goes into this, so much blood, sweat, tears, all of it goes into that. You need to be paid for the work that you're doing. You need to have a sustainable business. You need to have a profitable business. And you've been able to do that well through a couple different ways. And I think what I love about your model too is you give people permission to do things a different way. And you have different ways how you're able to show up for the community, how you've been able to accept payment inside of your practice, all the things. So, do you want to go through and talk a little bit more about your practice model, and the ways that you're able to show up in different capacities? Because you talk to it, quality. It's quality services that you're providing and
Mhm.
quality wellness that you're providing. It's not just the low budget, type of experience. They're getting the best of everything when they come to your practice, your patients are. So tell us more.
So there are three areas that we provide our services. One of them is, and I would say it's well, they're all foundational ways in which we provide services, but one of them is psychotherapy services. So providing the mental health support to folks who are seeking therapy. The other way that we provide services or wellness support is through workshops and training. So this is like personal and professional development workshops. And then we also provide community-based support groups and workshops as well. So I'm going to start with the quality mental health services. The quality mental health services, like the psychotherapy services, are not free. We do have our full rate fee. We primarily are a private pay practice, but the ways that we can meet the needs here are several. One of them is that we do accept like out of network payment for like PPO, flexible spending and healthcare savings accounts. Um, we also are contracted with a few insurances that we feel are aligned with our ways of being able to provide services and quality care. And then the other is contracted services with partners. So we have several partnerships with different organizations, businesses, and tribes where they are paying us our full rate, but the services are provided to the community members who are eligible free of cost. So community is getting free services, we're getting paid, and the folks who are receiving the care, no matter which way they're paying, they're getting completely quality therapy services with the providers in our practice. So that is like the way we meet the needs in our therapy side of mental health side. Then we have our professional and personal development. Now, this is primarily offered to organizations, tribes, businesses, universities, so really larger institutions who are paying us to facilitate a wellness experience and space. So folks also will get like a lot of psychoeducation. They'll get to really have like an experiential way of really understanding their own personal wellness and what does sustainable wellness look like for them. We do this in about we have five kind of like foundational offerings, like workshop topics that we provide this through, right? We charge for that, and that rate is high, and that high rate, but also covers many folks, so they can have a group of say 10 attendees to 50 attendees, right? So the organizations that have the financial means and they hire us to do this is really helpful because they have the ability to do that, and then we're able to provide um, our services through workshops. The third way that we do this is through our support circles, support groups, and offerings that we have either virtually or in person. And these are usually going to be accessible to anyone. Also, anyone, whether they're in the state of California or across the country, right? Because we know our community is worldwide, so we want to be accessible. And the way that we do that is we have several different offerings that are either free or donation based. And they're about an hour long. They're usually support spaces where folks can drop in and have conversations, ask questions. We also do some of our foundational trainings and workshops once a year, once or twice a year, where it's free to community as well. So there's different ways that folks can access us in receiving the support that's needed, and also creating the relationships for folks to see what are the different options and what might be a good fit for them in connecting with us. And because we don't meet all the needs of everybody, we also make sure to connect folks to other organizations that might be of a better fit for them. So we're constantly offering community connections to what might be in their price point or what their accessibility is, where their accessibility
Yeah,
needs
I
are.
love it so much because it's a diverse way to serve the community, to serve just the folks who really, really need the help. But you're not putting yourself in a position where it's hurting the business. Oftentimes, people will just be so heart centered that the business suffers. And the number one word that you said was alignment. So with the payers that are in alignment, not every single payer is going to be in alignment with what the practice needs and what they pay, right? And that's okay. And so you're partnering with folks who have the means, who have the resources, who can pay the rate. And it allows for you to make such a bigger impact that way compared to the opposite, where you're like nickel and diamond, trying to just do things. And so I think what I hear you saying, and just from the work that being in this journey with you, is the quality part of it, the alignment part of it, the mission part of it. You're very clear on the work that you're meant to do, but you're also very clear on we're going to be well paid to do it. So that way we can continue to do this work and the resentment doesn't step in, because you're able to move freely within the practice. So I know that you've been able to train up your team. In some of the conversations, I'm curious to know, what have you done? Because it's the owner can always be on board, like this is what we're going to do, but sometimes trying to get the team to understand can be a different conversation. So tell us a little bit more about how you've been able to navigate that.
Like, I think I always had the idea and knowing that I want to do it in this way, because even creating a private practice with the name Indigenous Circle of Wellness, I feel like for some, or even for myself, I was like, this is a bit of a risk because um, is it going to convey, right, like what I want it to? And like that quality services and that people are going to be paying our full rate or near full rate out of pocket, right? And so it was one for me to really like lean into that and to be comfortable with that and like be very grounded and like, why am I doing this? Like, what is the why? And like, where do I see and why this is important for us to do it maybe differently than many of us have come up in our like own education and like journey into this field, right? So with that, I will say I had my own stumbling blocks early on of trying to meet all the needs and, and sacrificing my own like financial, like wellness in that and like what that did and was not helpful for me, right? So I'm like, this is not sustainable, had a lesson there. And then, so in that, it's really like, okay, when we think about, I really lean on Indigenous core values, right? And one of them is reciprocity. And with reciprocity, this is the exchange, that mutual exchange. Now, when we think of like maybe our great 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 grandparents, what reciprocity looked like then is different than what it is now. The reciprocity today is going to be, in some ways, the exchange of the financial resource, right? That is how I'm able to have a home. That's how I'm able to have be able to pay for childcare for my son to be in a great like educational setting. It is the ways in which I'm able to have different office locations and pay for that, right? So in order for us to do that, the reciprocity here is going to be that exchange of the financial resource. So it was a lot of, for me, of also the reframing of it. Okay, how is this reciprocal? How is this sustainable? Right? Because we need to have that exchange. I am a person who is sitting across from someone providing a very specialized, like amazing service, but I need to be compensated for that. So I also did a lot of investment, right, in my education, in my time. Like there are student loans, like there are all these things. It's like, well, how do I, you know, so this is one way of doing that. So that's one way. Another Indigenous core value that I have, or that we have, is our responsibility to give back, right? So I can't give back just therapy, because therapy is like that's a sustainable thing for us, right? But what we can give back is in other ways. And this is one way that we give back, is like that we also employ other Native and Indigenous therapists. I feel like I do have a responsibility to train other folks, and so I do this in different ways. Sometimes it's through contracts. It's going to be through, just different speaking engagements and opportunities to connect with folks. So there's different ways in which I give back. Sometimes that's for free. Sometimes there's, I get an honorarium for that. But I do think it's important. And the way we give back to the practice is when we do offer some of these like free offerings or engagement opportunities for folks. It's what a new provider, before they even like apply for the position, would very much know around our core values. We have it, shared. We talk about it often, and we open it up in all of our workshops and trainings with the core values, so people know like what we are, where our foundation is, and where our core values are. And then it's very much continuous in how we talk about it within the practice with our team. And we talk about that from both like a capitalistic way of like, okay, this is how capitalism works, and we have to acknowledge that that is very much present in our lives. But how do we also understand that and not like fully like conform to that, but knowing it's very present, but also do it in a way that is aligned with our values? Because we do need to get paid, but at the same time, like, what are we promising to our community for this like exchange? We're promising them quality therapy services in a way that is culturally like centered and is uplifting our lineages, right? This you don't just get that anywhere, right? So in order to do that, we have to talk about it, because there is going to be money conversations like, well, we should give this for free. Absolutely, I want to give all of this for free, but is that going to sustain us? Is that going to make sure that we have a roof over our heads? Maybe not. But how then do we meet the need? Because we hear our community, this is expensive for some folks, right? Not all folks, but some folks is, I can't afford this. Okay, so how do we meet that need without like compromising our like financial wellness, but also not putting that burden on a potential client? Okay, partnerships. There are resources. How do we tap into those resources that we know are also values aligned? It's talking about it. So we have a lot of conversations, especially when someone is entering our practice, maybe from a community mental health, where you don't have that exchange of money, right? You don't have to say, hey, I'm going to provide you the service and you're going to pay me this amount. These are sometimes hard conversations. Like, I don't want to ask my community like to pay me. I get it. It's uncomfortable, but let's talk about that. So we do talk. We do have a lot of conversations. Um, and then we realize like, okay, like how do we then do it this way? And you know what? To be honest with you, like, yeah, folks will share with us that, oh, that's expensive. They might even say right now I can't afford that. But what are other ways that I can connect with you? And we're like, absolutely. Here are other ways to connect with us. Or how can we find different unique or innovative ways to to bring the services. So we're open to doing, well, we very much do things very differently, I would say. And that's part of the conversations we have as a team is we're going to do it different.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that what I love is the transparency, but you're also grounded in core values. And then even as you're having conversations with the team, you're able to dive into those core values and then asking the question, okay, what can we do? What's the opportunity? Where out putting the practice in a place of non-sustainability, non-profitability, because that's ultimately for the practice to be of it, the practice has to stay alive
Mm-hmm.
essentially to help in the community too. So yeah, I just, when I think about textbook practices and, that's what comes to mind is again, just the quality piece. How can we give quality services without putting the practice in a detriment position? How can, there's hard conversations that have to happen. So sometimes the answer is no, we can't see you here, but who can we send you to? Who's a good partner? Who's a good ally for us to work
Mm-hmm.
with? And then where is the money to help us be able to serve our purpose? And then what's like, where are we going? What does that look like? So I just think it's just so many great things. I'm curious to know because the other part of this is you are able to get clients, patients in the door, you have your workshops, your contracts, everything else. And so for folks who are maybe trying to step into that piece of keeping schedules full because it's private pay with the alignment of the payers who make sense, and then the workshops and things too that you're doing in events, how what are some of the tactics that you use in order to keep folks coming in the door from a business side?
Relationships are huge. And we do this in various ways, right? But a lot of the relationships that I have are long-standing relationships for the past like over a decade of the work that I've been doing in the community. So there's deep trust in that, like what work are we doing? And right, we really do practice what we preach around like the quality part of it, and that's has really always been who I am as a person in any work environment I've ever been at, whether it was back in the day working at, Save On or at the mall, like no matter what, it was like you're gonna do a good job and you
Hmm.
know, and that's like you always leave a place better than what you how you found it, right? Like
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
always been like a core like just think for myself, I was raised with my grandparents really instilling that in me. And so that is really what I also bring into the practice as a business owner. Um, but I do that in my relationships, right? Like relationships are really important. They're not just like touch points or like just hang out. Like, I mean that happens too where we just like have different connections, but like I've shown up for people over the years. They've shown up for me again really like that relationships and like reciprocity. And so when I first started early on, I reached out to a lot of those connections first, like, hey, I just opened my practice, if you have any questions, anyone that's interested. And to my surprise, or maybe not my surprise, but at the time I was like, what, I just opened my practice, and within 6 months we were full and I needed to hire a new provider. So I'm like, what is it about the practice or what I'm doing that is so important, and that is the relationships. The relationships are really essential because it's the trust that we have in the community. They know that we say we're going to provide what we say we're going to provide, and it shows up in the feedback that we receive, whether it's through referrals. We get a lot of family referrals and community referrals, like cousins, aunties, grandmas, referring us to one another. We see a lot of friends. So early on, it was the early relationships, and then now it's the relationships through folks who have already come through our doors, and now they're sharing with us, sharing with their community, like friends and family, and that's how we get more clients. We've up until recently, we haven't done any like I would say marketing, like I would in the sense of you know like any kind of ads anywhere. We just have had a Instagram page, and a website, and that's it. We never really did any ads anywhere. And I'm like, oh, we've done really well without having any of that. That's all because of the relationship building that we've done in the community, myself and my team included. So when someone's going to work in our practice, they're coming in and they're going to like, the expectation is that they're going to be in community. They're going to be building relationships as well. So it's really important to how we show up is to have those relationships. So that's kind of like our core thing. And then I'm like, oh, that's in a sense that is marketing, but that's not how I thought about it early on. It wasn't like, oh, this is our marketing strategy. It was never like a strategy. It was just like I'm showing up how I am and who I am as a person. And then I'm letting my team like know like this is important. And then they started doing that. I'm like, oh, so this is an actual, when I started learning more on the business end of things, like, oh, this is like a marketing thing. But I still don't call it that because it doesn't feel right to me. So I'm like, this is relationship building. And that is how we continuously get folks through the door, right? So later today, I'm going to do a workshop facilitation with folks I've never met before. And, and I'm like, I'm going to meet new people. I'm going to build some new relationships, right? I might not have like a deep, profound like relationship with each person, but I know almost always I end up having a new friend, a new person who like we get to connect in some way. But that's just who I am as, who I am. So it definitely like ripples into how we show up as an entire team, and how folks then receive us and how we're invited into spaces that maybe other folks might not be because they know who we are and what we stand for.
It's 10 years of building a relationship. It's 10 years of showing up for them and them showing up for you. It's a back and forth exchange, and it's been able to benefit not only the practice but the community at large too, right? And so it's building partnerships and collaboration. So that's the marketing tactic within the strategy is, partnerships and collaborations, but it's one of the secret to successes, but it takes time. I think a lot of times people think, oh, let me show up, have one conversation, or maybe show up and maybe go to like one event, compared to showing up and showing up and showing up and being of service and truly building the relationship in order to not only build the business, but to continue to, that purpose driven, that mission focus. And it goes back to, I think what the practice is built on
Mhm.
too, and even just like the values too.
Yeah, there are folks in the community, and if they listen to this, they know, where they can call me and say, "Hey, Monique, like we
Mhm.
have this opportunity, or we need you." Even that, just like Monique, we have a situation, we need you. Can you show up? I'm like, Give me a second, let me see," right? And I've shown up for them, and vice versa, they've done that for me. And so
Mhm.
we can't do it all the time, but when we're able to, there's various ways in which we've shown up for folks, myself and our team included. And, we do our best in doing that. And again, it's not a tactic, but it has helped us in those, like, just having that trust within community, like that we will show up. Um, and sometimes I don't have the answers, but I will connect you to who might have the answers. And I think that's really like just a really important to share because I've felt the experience and many times, and I still get it sometimes today, where you can feel like it's very extractive and like also tokenizing, and that is not what we do, and also not what we allow folks to do to us. Like I'm
Mhm.
very aware of that, and so I'm like, how is this? Like if it doesn't sit right with me, I'm not like we're not doing it. And we'll say no kindly, but we also say no
Mhm.
to things that don't feel right. um and so I'd make sure that we don't do that to others.
Yeah, and it goes back to the alignment piece. Like, is it in alignment? How do we want to show up? How do we want to present, within the community? And the main thing when it comes to relationships, it's not the best relationships. It's not it's like not surface level or just well, what benefits you, and it's not one sided. The best relationships are the ones where there's a mutual exchange of energy, a mutual exchange of
Hmm.
respect, a mutual exchange of I want to be there for you, and in return, people want to be there for you in exchange for that, right? So it's
Hmm.
a win-win situation. And so the fact of it's not in alignment or I can feel something's off here, again, it goes back to your owning what the mission and vision is of the practice. Is not serving us in so many different ways. And I love that because I think a lot of people are nervous to say, no, this doesn't feel good, or this isn't in alignment, or this feels something's off about this. And to say no, either because they're nervous of, I might lose out money, or they're nervous of, well, I'll hurt this person's feelings, or it's going to give me a bad reputation. And really, it's the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the opposite that will happen because you're staying true and you keep using the same word, grounded in who
Mm-hmm.
you are, the authenticity, being transparent. And I think that's the realness of business. And when you focus on the quality piece, it goes back to quality relationships, quality of service, then everything else propels from there. And it makes it so much easier to build the practice.
Mm-hmm.
The other question that I definitely want to bring into this is because you have a robust team. You have a admin support, you have a clinical director, you have leadership. You've been able to build an amazing business culture and in process of even leveraging even more your team as you're growing your practice too. What was that transition like for you? And what are some things that you might want to share about how you show up with your team and been able to build that type of team?
When we first started and when I opened up the practice, I knew I was going to have it as a group practice one day, right? But it was Indigenous Circle of Wellness, and there was one employee or one person, and that was me. And I thought this is going to probably take about 5 years to have like my first employee or person who joins the practice. But as I mentioned earlier, I filled it very quickly and I needed more support. So I was like, oh, this is happening sooner. I need to add someone to the practice with me to take on. I didn't want clients to be on a waiting list. So I was like, we need to meet the need. Okay. So then I brought on the first provider. And then within maybe 3 or 4 months after that, we're like, oh, wow, like now she's full. We need another provider. So within the first year, I had 4 providers and we were working and seeing clients like, wow, this group practice really like escalated quickly. So then I'm like, okay, so this idea of like I have all this time, which yes, we have time, but I also felt like we didn't have the time. Like I need to like figure this stuff out like on the foundational end as a business owner. Being a first generation business owner, had a lot to learn, right? So over the course of time, when we opened up our doors um, in 2017, I've learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes, trial and error. But I will say I come from a very strong background in like operations and also leadership and management. So I had already had leadership experience. I had already like worked up with budgets, large budgets. I helped. I co-founded another organization, got everything set up on the operational end of things. So I'm like, oh, this is a really strong skill set that is very transferable into a business and my own practice. So I started really building in systems. And also I was paying attention to when I go to the doctor, what do I like about this experience and what do I not like about this experience? What would I have wanted to be different? And I'm a person who likes things to be seamless and easy and quick. And honestly, that is really where our generation now is at. Like we want a click of a button, like things easy. I was like, okay, I don't like when I have to call someone and they have to call me back and then they have to call them again. So that was something right early on was like, what system do I need to make sure that clients are getting connected? There's someone answering the phone, they're on someone's schedule immediately. Like, so systems and operations were at the forefront. Ideally, you would want to get this stuff done early, like first before you hire everyone. I kind of did it at the same time, but I'm very quick at like seeing something and then implementing it and then having like an entire process for that. So trained up each of the providers. This is how we're gonna do it. This is gonna work. And then from there, after the first year, it was like, okay, this is really working, and then continuing to do what works, and then always seeing, well, where else can we improve? And as our team increased, and we hired more folks, and through time, we've had like we've had other positions as well when we had different type of funding sources. We did some grants, some contracts with the Department of Mental Health. So I had a team at some point of, I believe we had 8 providers, and then but an overall team of 15, like folks in our team with directors and coordinators and admin staff. um, we were able to sustain that because of the systems and the processes that we had implemented in place years prior. So now where we're at, I feel like we're now at a phase in the practice where we're very focused on what we do really well and continuing to do that. Just continue to do that well, and fine tuning it even more. And now we're in, I would say, our main kind of focus in this year and and next year and the upcoming years is how do we bring our services to the community where we still continue to get paid well, but where there can be more accessibility. So right now we're working on continuous partnerships with tribes and organizations who have the financial resources to pay us and for us to bring our services to them. But all of that has been possible because of all of the different foundational things. Like I had to work with an attorney for our contracts, and then I had to, make sure that we have a good payment system, that our accounting was tight, that we have, our operational team and our folks who are doing all the bookkeeping, like everything is right and efficient and good, and that our taxes are clean and good, like all the things, right? So all of those things have been, every year has been getting better and better and better so that we can actually receive more, right? So we can receive those funds to be able to provide more services. And in the new year, we're going to be doing um, a lot more hiring. We need to have more providers. We have 3 locations now, so and our hope is to have more locations in the upcoming years to be more accessible, like in different spaces. In order to do that, we need to make sure all of our systems and our processes are good.
That's like music to my ears, like where it's, the compliance piece and making sure that the taxes are right, the contracts are right, there's no makeshift decisions. And that's the easiest foundation to scale on because you're ready to receive, you're prepared for what you're asking for, and
Hmm.
you're prepared for the growth that you're going to go after. And not that things won't be perfect, but operationally, like systems and processes will take you so far. And then it's more or less like, how can we refine the system? How can we tweak the process in
Hmm.
order to get to this next level of growth? So just, you know, yes,
Hmm.
you're just amazing. Great job.
And it's having that conversation right now with our team because it's like the team
Mhm.
and the way that our practice is right now we're gonna shift again. We're gonna be in another area
Yeah.
of growth, and how are we preparing? So I just had a management team meeting with my clinical director and director of operations. It's like, okay, this is where we're headed on your like area of like expertise area in your role. What is solid and what needs to even like get more solid to be able to receive, right? Because we're going to reach more folks. We're going to reach more folks, but in order to do that, we need to make sure that we're good. And like as you mentioned, it doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but it means that we're able to pivot more quickly and efficiently, and the community is not going to
Yeah.
feel the jolt if there's a behind the scenes thing that we need to fix, we can fix it. I don't want my like the community to feel like they don't got their stuff together. Like no, we do. We got it together and they deserve the best. Like honestly, like the community deserves the best, and oftentimes we don't get that from different settings, or we think that we have to just accept for whatever it is. Like absolutely not, right? Like we want to make sure folks are getting quality from the start to finish. And if there's an area that we're not doing well in, I want to know, the team wants to know so we can make it better.
So many good things, so many good gems in this conversation. And so, just to wrap things up, and just for people, if people aren't taking notes and they need to, but what are some lasting tips that you would leave?
I think it's really important for folks to stay aligned with their values and who they are, like who they are in their essence, and stay grounded in that and not feel like they need to do something else that someone else is doing or what they think others need. versus staying grounded and like the who's going to receive from you, receive the services or what you have to offer are out there. If you and just stay grounded in it, and you can have a successful business, a successful practice without like losing who you are. I think that's really important. I think if I listened to what people would tell me early on, like, no, you shouldn't do it that way, or that's not a good name because that's only reaching some folks. It's like, no, I'm, I know why this is important, and also I think it's like some of the narratives. So a lot of limiting beliefs that we like folks will have and like put on us. This like just know for yourself what is at your core so you can like stay grounded in that, and also be open to just learning and growing, being a good student and a good teacher.
Focus on your focus, stay grounded in your mission, know that your vision is definitely for you. And when you do that and you focus on like your core values and what you're building, and that's where your focus goes, then everything else will fall into place. So
Mhm.
thank you, Monique, so
Thank-
much for coming and having this conversation with me. So where can people find you? Because I know that you're definitely going to get some inquiries after this.
Absolutely, yes. So I would say Instagram is a great way to find me. So to find me personally, it's at Monique Castro coach. That's my Instagram handle. And then to follow my private practice, it's at Indigenous Circle of Wellness.
Perfect. Perfect. No, thank you again. And I hope that everyone who is listening has an amazing day. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and it empowers you as the CEO of your practice. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe, share the message, and leave a review. If you want more information and support in growing and scaling your practice, click the link in the show notes to take advantage of our free resources or apply to work with me directly. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.